Can you see my screen?
No, Ram.
Yeah, not sure what's happening. Let me share again. Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay. So these were some of the questions from Vaishali. Okay. So
Ram, it's Vishali.
okay, Vishali. Sorry. Yeah. So these are some of the questions. I think it's visible. So the first question is scoped roles can be created in three ways. So I don't know what is the third way. So I'll answer the first two things. So scoped roles can be directly created based on standard SAP roles, right? So SAP delivers some standard roles like the DWI space administrator, right? So that is a standard role, and based on the standard role, you can directly create a scope role. Yes, and then on you can create a custom role. So while creating a custom role, you can use any standard role as a template, or you can start from scratch. It's up to you. And based on this custom role, also you can create a scope role. That's also given. But the third one I don't understand. When you say, edit the global role and save it as a new scope role, that is, in my understanding, that's not possible. When you edit a standard role, you can save it as a custom role, but not a custom scope role. It's two steps. So first you edit a standard role, you save it as a custom role, and then you use the custom role to create a scope role like that. So the third one is not directly possible. Uh, so the first two ones, yes, it is possible, and your question is also valid. Like if SAP updates, what happens, right? So irrespective of whether it is SAP updating or you updating, so from the scope role standpoint, whatever the base role is, if that gets updated, then the scope role will also get updated. So in that, if with that understanding, if you have a scope role based on a standard SAP role, then in the future, SAP can update the standard roles, right? So when they update the standard role, the scope role will also get updated. But on the other hand, if you have created a custom role, irrespective of whether you started with a standard role and saved it as a custom role, or you started with the custom role, used standard role as a template, there is no direct link between a standard role and custom role. So once you save it as a custom role, it is a custom role. And whatever SAP does, it will not affect the custom role. But if you go inside a custom role and if you change the permissions, any scoped role that is based on this custom role, that will get updated. So whenever the base role, either standard or custom, whenever they get updated, the scope role will get updated. That's the theory. And SAP only updates their standard roles. So if you, for this question, when you ask like if SAP changes, your scope roles should change. Then if your scope role is based on standard role, then it will change. But that's not the ideal thing. So that is again not the best practice. So SAP always suggests that you always create a custom role, because then you will have control and then you can decide whether the new permissions that they are giving you want to give to the users or not.
Okay.
And coming to this question, how can we overcome all the users getting added? Okay, so this one is again how you design the scope role. Right. So ideally, how you will design the scope role is you create multiple scope roles per space itself. For example, if there is a finance space, then I will have a modeler, administrator, and viewer. At least three roles I will have for that space itself. And like that, if I have 4 5 spaces, I'll have like this at least these three roles in different three roles. I'll have finance underscore modeler, finance underscore viewer, finance underscore administrator, like that. I'll have sales underscore modeler, like that also. And then I'll have some system like multiple space roles where I will have the system level administrator also being administrators of space, etc. That I might call, global underscore administrators, global underscore modelers, global underscore viewers, something like that. And in that, I will add all the spaces or whatever spaces are required, and then I'll add whatever users are required. So the way that I think you all saw us adding the scope role is directly in the space. That's why whichever is the user that is inside the role, it automatically got added to the space. So which you can remove, but that's why it got added directly to the space. But if you are creating a role, scoped role, here you can actually go and you can customize that. So let me find, okay, let's take the C test. So in this, we have two tabs, so task and then users. So if you go to this users, so basically here what you can do is, here there is a button which lets you add the type of users to scopes. Scopes is nothing but spaces and user is nothing but user. So you can either add one new user to some scope or all current users, which is like all these people, to a new scope, or all users from the system to scope, right? So what that does is, so if I click this add all current users to scopes, right? So it is automatically picking all these three users, right? And if I have added a new scope, for example, I go here. So currently you see what is happening. This role is sitting between three users and three spaces. So Ram sample, Ram1 test is the space, and Santosh, Pratap, and Ram are the users, right? So now all three users have all three space access. For example, I'm adding a new space, right? So the question is, maybe I don't want all the three people to have access in this new space. Then what I can do is when I go to this users, right? Uh, so here I can see that Santosh one is the new space we added. So all the three users are getting added. So if that's not what I want, I can go ahead and remove them. And even when I'm adding, when I have no users, when I'm adding a new scope, I can also control like which users should be added. So when I say all users to scope, I can control, okay, maybe not this two users, like that. So basically it's how you design the scope role. We were actually not designing at the role level. So we were going to space directly and adding the scope role there, and whenever different you people are using the same role, they added their names into the role and you added the role into your space. So ideally in every space you ended up having multiple users. So in a production system it will not happen like that. You will sit down as a security team first itself, and then you will decide the type of role you want to create, and then you will define all the scopes. So even though in one role you have many users, not necessarily like all users should have access to all spaces. You can control like each line item and decide like what you want to keep and what you do not want. So yes. Can we change the data type of the primary key? Not only the data type, if you want to make any changes to the primary key which has a data, it is not possible, because whenever you need a primary key in a table, it has to create a specific type of DB index, database index, right? So the moment you added some data into a table and when you did not have a primary key, the system might have its own kind of primary key and its own index in the database. So it will not allow you to make any changes. So if you have data in a table and if you try to make any change, like even adding a new primary key or any change related to a primary key, it will not allow you, because the index has to be done from the start, right? So this is a very good question actually. So one of the workaround is you create a duplicate of this table, and then you go to the original table, you delete the data, you make the changes, and then you activate or deploy the table with the changes, and then you use a data flow to load the data from the duplicate table to your original table. Only thing is, the change that you're doing should not break it. For example, if there is a column that was having all strings, and then if you change the data type to integer, and then you are trying to load strings into integer, it will not work. So if you are not breaking logic like that, like the data types can contain the data from the duplicate table, then you are good. But it should have been handled better, like in the enterprise level software. They could have done all this in the background using some procedures or something. But there is a technical constraint. You cannot do any changes to a primary key because it requires the database level indexes and so on. So for that reason, you have to have a workaround. So which is like duplicate, make the change, duplicate, drop the data, make the change, deploy, and load the data from the duplicate. And coming to create table from JSON or CSV will deploy the table. I will need to, it will not deploy the table. We need to deploy the table. And when we do ER model through JSON or CSN, the table will create and no, there also the table will not create and deploy. So the thing is, when you import a ER model, it will just show, okay, these are the dependent objects that are also imported, right? So it will not only import, it will not deploy. But what people do is, so when they are inside the ER model, they'll deploy the ER model. So in the ER model, there is nothing to deploy. Like the ER model itself, it's not a database level object. So what it does when you deploy a ER model is it actually deploys all the tables and views that are part of the ER model. That's why you feel like when you import a ER model, everything is getting deployed. So when you import a ER model, actually it will not get deployed. If you just import and then check right away, it will all show as not deployed. But if you click the deploy button in the ER model, then actually it's deploying all the tables and views and whatever is inside the ER model. I'm not able to persist with the view. Wanted to check whether the update records will show after running the schedule. Okay, I am not sure if I understand the question correctly.
No.
Can you?
In the previous class also, I asked the schedule once and whether I need to check the number of records changed to 41. So in my tenant system, I'm not able to persist the view. The data persistent, which I attached as a screenshot, that's not enabled for me. So am I missing out anything?
You have attached screenshots. Okay.
Yeah.
Check.
This left side, I think. Data persistence, another second or third. This one, yeah, data persistent. I
This
don't
is the
see any.
persistent.
Yeah, I don't see it as save as persist. The options which were shown by you on the day. You'll find another icon towards the left of the refresh button in your tenant, but for me it's not visible.
We are in the same tenant, right? This is also meant
Yeah.
as full tenant. So when you say tenant, you are saying in your space it is not working.
Yeah, in my space.
Okay, we'll check that way it is not working. I'm not sure what's happening here. So yeah, ideally, if it is a view and if it is coming from any source, then you should see persistence. Let's check like why this is happening. And then you have, I'm not able to connect to HANA Database Explorer. So again, you're saying I was able to connect during the class. So one thing can be maybe you forgot the password or something. You can always regenerate a new password and try with a new password this time. So that also maybe, yeah, you can give it a try, generating a new password. If it is still not working, yeah, we'll check why it's not working. And this last question is again a good question. So you are saying that, okay, so when we have a space, there is a schema. When we have a schema, why is there no space? So that is actually, I mean, for all the DataSphere spaces that we create, yes, you are right. It will actually create a schema in the database. And in the database, we can see the schema. For example, you have a space called Vishali Dev, and then you will see a schema also called Vishali Dev. Whereas there are many other schemas also, like some system related schema, and then there are many other schemas. So the reverse assumption is not true. Not all schemas will be shown in DataSphere as a space. So taking the same thing when you are creating an OpenSQL schema also, even though it is a schema in the database level, it is not shown as the space in the DataSphere. And that's there for many reasons. It's mainly there for, the application has to have some uh, guardrails to prevent you from breaking the application itself. So for example, if all schemas are shown as spaces, what will stop you from going into some of the system spaces and then unintentionally doing something that can cause the system the stability, right? So that way, so yes, whenever you create any space, a schema will be created. That is true, but the reverse is not true. Whenever you create any schema, it will not create a space in the data space. Yeah. So I think those are your questions. Any more questions, or you still want any clarification?
No, I'm okay with this. But only concern is that we need to wait until the next class to clarify all these doubts. So if it would have been a day more earlier, then I would have worked it out and
I actually put the response in the mail, but I didn't know whether some of the questions I didn't know if I understood the question correctly.
no, not
Uh,
about these questions. If because like I need someone to check whether I'm not able to how to connect to the database explorer. So is there any way to communicate so that any issues with the connections we get it resolved before the class and uh, come up in pace with this class?
Yeah, I
Mm.
think maybe if we can have a WhatsApp group or anything, we can discuss internally also would be.
Yeah, that's what like some of the batches they do actually. They create the WhatsApp group internally, and then like one of you can create a WhatsApp group and put the invite in the chat, and then everyone can join there.
Yeah, that wouldn't be like if we have any questions, at least someone might have an answer, they can answer. Or if you are part of the group, or that might be a quick response you might be able to give.
Yeah, you can create a
Yeah.
WhatsApp group and put the link. Maybe one of you to take that as your thing, and then you put the group link, invite link, and everyone can click and join.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I.
Okay. So anyone else? Any other questions from the last
Ram,
sessions?
actually, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, Ram. Actually, there is one question. Like when I created the OpenSQL schema in Space, and when I go to the Explorer, only that Open schema showing like with the hash suffix, but not showing the Space schema.
Yeah. So I think the access you are giving in the space level may be not enough. So if you enable all the checkboxes there properly, then it
Yeah,
should show.
no, I have checked. I have tick mark all the things except the logs buttons.
So I will just check your. This is the space.
Yes, yes. Yeah, this.
Okay. Yeah. You have all. Even you have locks also.
Yeah, I have tested, but
Okay.
no
So I
use
will
in the
just
Explorer.
get a new password. So yeah, whenever you think that the connection is not working or something, you can click a new password and then you can copy the password. Let's try to open this.
And this HANA Database Explorer just for the small brush up, like this is the only for calculation views or restricted key figures, all these things, right? Or not the modeling.
Okay. So there are two web-based applications. There are many web-based applications. So for creating calculation views and all that, you need another web application. Which is called Business Application Studio. So you cannot do that
Yeah.
in the Database Explorer.
Then what is the purpose of the Business Explorer? Like in that one, what we need to exactly main
So
purpose?
I mean, it's okay. So it's a data warehousing tool, right? So we will discuss that. I mean, there is a session where we'll discuss what we'll do
Yeah.
with the OpenSQL schema.
Actually,
But yeah,
my doubt is, actually we have created only in the HANA Studio, right? Like for the calculated all the things. So, and in the last class, you told like this is somewhat like HANA Studio only, that HANA Database Explorer. So that's my doubt.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Let me just reset my password and come. I
Yeah, yeah.
don't know what I did. Okay, so I can now access your database. Um, so we can see honey test. So see, we cannot see the main space. Is this happening for everyone or is it happening only for you?
And what is that another space Ram test hash something set something?
This is some temporary, like technical spaces. It will create automatically some temporary spaces. Okay, so I'll check that. I'm not sure why it is not giving you. So maybe it has to do some system level access. I'll check what is different from my user to your user. And sometimes, there are some space level privileges we should have. Okay, so maybe you can go on mute, I guess. Yeah, there was some noise in the background. Okay, so about the tooling, right? So some of you might be, I don't know how comfortable are you in HANA. So what happened is the HANA Studio or the Eclipse based uh, the development environment. It's been there for a long time, yes. And HANA Studio is not a one tool, right? So if you check HANA on demand, so there are multiple tools actually. So if you go to the HANA development tools, so if you see here, if you need to do ABAP level development, which is called ADT, ABAP development tools, then there is a plugin for that. If you need to do BW level development, if you need to do cubes and all that for BW for HANA, then there is a plugin for that in Eclipse. And then if you want to do cloud level development, there is a plugin. Like that, there are different, even though it is just one Eclipse, and we all tend to call it HANA Studio, the HANA Studio is only this plugin, like the HANA Tools plugin that makes Eclipse your HANA Studio. But there are other plugins for each of these different things. And also within HANA itself, there are some data administrator level activities that you do, right? So you do users privileges and all that, and then you do some database level, catalog level activities where you create tables, views, and everything. And then you do some consumption layer level activities like the information modeling level activities, right? So for all this in Eclipse, it was like going to different perspectives and then doing that. But now what happened is SAP is trying to make the tooling easier, or the tooling not offline but browser based. So what they are doing is they have introduced multiple tools. For example, to maintain and do administration, like creating users, creating privileges, there is something for database admin console kind of. There is a different tool for that, which is an online tool. And then when you want to create catalog level items like tables, views, synonyms, and all that, then you have this database explorer. And then when you want to create the calculation view and information modeling and things like that, and even to create cloud applications and everything, you have SAP Business Application Studio. So all the other tools like the database admin console, the database explorer, all these tools, they are kind of free to use. Free to use in the sense, if you have the license for HANA or trial version for HANA, yeah, they come with that. Whereas this Business Application Studio, which is a web version of VS Code, right? So it's a VS Code with a lot of plugins. So this Business Application Studio is a containerized thing. Like they have Kubernetes in the backend that is creating containers, and it is launching that VS Code for you. So the benefit for the customer is you don't have to install anything locally, and you can operate from any system, even if it's very old and it does not have the resources to run a full-fledged development thing. But the downside is if you have offline tools, it's free, right? So it's free for you to use. But whereas this Business Application Studio, there is a pricing model for that, right? So even SAP charges you not only for the SAP HANA and the software you're using, but also for the tooling, right? And the tooling is kind of like when you're new to the SAP HANA, the cloud, and SAP BTP and these things, and if you're directly learning SAP Analytics Cloud and DataSphere only, not starting from SAP BTP or something, the tooling can look a little bit hard to understand. The thing is, there are a lot of tools now. So previously it was just HANA Studio or even Eclipse with the multiple plugins to do different things. Now there are different tools, like separate tools for each of that. Even this one plugin which used to be in Eclipse for HANA Studio, where you used to do 3 or 4 types of activities: admin activity, catalog development, and then view development. Now there are 3 tools to do the one plugin and different perspectives in Eclipse did. And out of these 3 tools, 2 of the tools are kind of free, and one of the tool is kind of paid. Right? So you have to go and dig in a little bit about HANA development and then understand the tooling. Uh, so that way, you will come to know which tool should be used for what.
Yeah, thanks.
So this tool, mainly this Database Explorer tool, it's mainly used for creating this catalog type objects. So in the catalog, you see all these things, right? So all these you can create in the tool itself. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Ram. Ram, the moment when we talk about BTP, even the DataSphere also comes under BTP, right? Or else?
Yes. So DataSphere is now in the middle of a transition, I would say, right? So when DataSphere was initially released, it was called Data Warehouse Cloud, right?
Yes.
And then it was very similar to SAC. They started with some version of SAC and then they created DataSphere out of it. And it was a standalone cloud software, very similar to SAC. And it was subscription based. It was a tenant, cloud tenant, and it was subscription based. Like you have to pay for number of users per month, right? So things were very fine. But then they slowly, their rebranding happened. Data Warehouse Cloud became DataSphere. And then what happened is it was made as service inside BTP also. So currently there are 2 types of DataSphere. So one type of DataSphere is called tenants, and then we have subscription based modeling there. And then the other type of DataSphere is services, which is inside BTP, and then there is consumption based. So they'll give you some CUs, consumption units, which you can buy. For example, you can buy 1,500 CUs, and then it doesn't mind how many users you create and so on, right? So it's not a user level subscription based license. Instead, even if you have only one user and if you're using the DataSphere system a lot, then your consumption units will get consumed very quick. But even if you have 1,000 users and then you don't consume DataSphere a lot, the consumption unit will still be there. So now DataSphere is available in both the things. Like there is a standalone tenant like setup, which you have to fill some forms and the SAP will provision for you, and then it is subscription based, etc. And then there is DataSphere, which is service, where if you have your BTP global account and sub account, and if you have the administrator privileges and so on, you can go and you can enable the DataSphere as a service, and you can spin up your own instance. You don't have to go and ask SAP to create your DataSphere tenant. You can create yourself. But yeah, so it is kind of now both options are there. But what I hear recently, even when Ankit was trying to procure a new DataSphere tenant, is this option was not given to him. So only this option was given to him. So I guess slowly, there is no clear communication so far. So it is just a speculation. So that it looks like SAP is moving towards this one. Like DataSphere will be a service in BTP and it will be based on consumption-based licensing. And this subscription-based standalone tenant concept is might go away. Like so, we have to wait till SAP answers on that.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So similar thing to SSC also, right? Because SSC is coming to inside BTP.
So in that case, the
It
same thing
will
happen to
take a
SSC?
little longer because in SSC they are doing a different kind of experiment, right? So SSC, see, it is basically balancing between the costs and the profit, right? So if you think about DataSphere, uh, the thing is about not the number of users, but about the data volume, right? So in DataSphere, it's a heavy data volume kind of setup. So for SAP, the backend cloud infrastructure providers like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, everyone is going to charge SAP based on this. So if they allow, if they give a user-based licensing model, if they say there are 20 users DataSphere, you pay me per user this much, and if some company is having very huge data volume, then SAP is going to end up with a lot of bills. The users directly does not translate to volume. So that's why in DataSphere they want this consumption-based licensing. Whereas in SAC, if you think about it, it's not about the data volume. There it is actually about the users. So there will be more and more number of users who will want to see there is also data volume is also a concern there. But instead, like more than that, there will be more number of users who want to actually see the reports. So there it makes for more sense for them to give more and more user-based licensing. So there also the ask from the customer side is they are saying that, okay, I have 1,000 users, but maybe only 50 users are very active. Like every day they will check SAC. Another 100 users are there. They are rarely active. Maybe once a month or something they'll check. And the rest of the users, they are like they are not at all, SAC people. They are maybe very high level managers or they are working in operations and so on. And whenever only we send out annual reports or something, at that time, maybe 4 or 5 times a year, they'll check SAC. So customers were asking, customers are asking SAP, okay, so we have this kind of thing, what can we do? So there, what SAP is giving is something called as a concurrent user sessions, right? So you do not pay for named users. You buy, for example, if you have 50 very active users, yes, you will buy 50 normal licenses, normal BI or planning licenses. And then if you have some 100 or 200, but very rare users, what you will do is instead of buying 200 named licenses, you will buy 50 concurrent licenses. What that means is you can create 200 users or 300 users or 500 users with this 50 concurrent license. The only restriction is at one time, out of this 500 users, only 50 people can come online. So that type of licensing there they are researching. But yeah, consolidating SAC into BTP as a service is also a plan. And then there they might also have consumption based licensing, or we have to check and see what they are going to do in there. But DataSphere, at least it is already there. It is already
Understood.
almost ready to release. But in SAC, they still have a lot of things to do before they reach that point.
Okay. Aram, one more question, maybe little diverting, but I'll take only 30 seconds. Okay. So now, when there are, let's say there is a company, so they have three different SAP system. Two are in legacy ECC, because ECC is on GTS. Another S4 system, they're doing transaction in simple center finance and OTC. And there is no analytics on top of that. So when we propose, this is a real scenario, when we proposed, the custom, even the vendor itself saying, okay, what we can do, instead of going to DataSphere, so to merge everything, you go for Snowflake, do the reporting in BTP. But since we are actually aligned to SAP, we proposed, okay, no, you go for DataSphere, consolidate everything to DataSphere, do the reporting in SSE. So do you have a 2 cents? What should actually, because they are actually debating now. So what should be better solution and how?
Snowflake.
Yeah.
See, so Snowflake, the good thing I like about Snowflake, I'll tell good, bad, and ugly.
Right.
So the good thing I like about Snowflake is they are billing based on the storage separately and then the compute separately. So you have the compute from extra small till 6XL, right? So if you need very quick data processing, right? I have a very big table that has 1 billion records and I want to immediately load it for some reason. I just have to load it in 50 seconds or 1 minute or something. What I can do is I can spin up a 6XL compute machine very quickly, like within 1 second, and then I can run that load using that compute cloud. It will be very costly. So compared to a normal compute, the 6XL will be that 10 times costly, or even 2 to the power 10 times costly. It will be very costly, but it can get the job done very quickly. That is one of the things in DataSphere. You cannot directly control the compute. You cannot, even though it is elastic because of the cloud nature, you cannot directly govern that. Like you cannot say, because of this load, I want to increase the compute so much, like 100 times or 500 times. Like that. So it is basically comes down to your initial sizing. You initially would have said, I want this much storage, I want this much compute. You have to stick with that. The problem with that is sometimes what happens in S4 HANA, you will encounter very big tables, billions of records.
Right.
And then what happens is DataSphere will take days to load. And then the customer will be pissed off. He will be like, oh my God, what are you guys doing? So why are you taking 2-3 days to load this stuff? Right, so that's very ugly for DataSphere, and that's very good for Snowflake. Now coming to the billing side of it, so DataSphere, if you compare the costs in DataSphere, you have very clear defined bills. So you will know that, okay, if it is subscription based, then you don't have any extra cost at all. You will have 20 user license per month, and you know the cost. And consumption unit also, you will upfront, you will commit to some consumption unit and buy that like 1,500, or you will say that I am going to spend this much consumption unit. You can set a budget basically, and you will not run into that overbilling. But in Snowflake, yeah, you can burn your pockets. Like you cannot predict how much the bill is going. You can set the budget. There are also options to set the budget. But when you want very good compute, and if you want very good storage, you can easily burn your packets. Like when you compare Snowflake and DataSphere, cost-wise, DataSphere is much cheaper. That's the ugly for Snowflake.
So are you saying DataSphere can be cheaper than Snowflake sometime?
Most of the
Sometime.
time, yes.
Okay.
Most of the time.
But
So
DataSphere is
Snowflake, the thing is, in the compute and all, you have to set up certain parameters to auto suspend and auto turn on and everything. So without those parameters set, what can happen is, even if you're not running anything, there can be something that's going on idly, and that can burn your packet. I have seen in real projects people getting very big bills, and then companies getting fired from a contract. They are getting just fired because why did you let it run into that much? So that kind of thing has never happened with DataSphere, because you know how much it's going to cost you for 1 month, how much it's going to cost you for 1 year. The projection is easier. So Snowflake has to work on that part and then come up with a better solution there. And the other good thing about the DataSphere is its connectivity to SAC, and now especially its connectivity to planning. So SAP is working on something called a seamless planning. So if a customer is interested in using SAC as a planning tool also, then the DataSphere and SAC has a good, SAC is going to use DataSphere as the primary storage location. It's not going to store in SAC and then export it to DataSphere, but it's going to directly use DataSphere as the primary storage. So that is something you cannot achieve with Snowflake. And then the product switch and the seamless integration, all that you cannot achieve with Snowflake. So I would say, typically, if you have a customer who is a very large company, they don't care about the budget, they want peak performance, then Snowflake plus SAC will make sense. But if you have a company who is very conservative and who are coming from a typical SAP background, they have all SAP products, then I would say DataSphere will make more sense, because DataSphere will easily connect with the S4 and other SAP systems, and also it will easily connect with SAC. And then SAP is also innovating something to make this connection even more seamless. Like they are always innovating something, like data plane services was previous one, and then they reiterated into data fabric now. So in few days you can see that the DataSphere will be de facto in SAP. So for any other SAP systems or non-SAP systems to connect, DataSphere will become like the data fabric.
Yeah. Yes. So they will be actually taking out data services too slowly, right? They might not be using data services, and also that can easily connect to other ECC system, which is not in HANA also.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And so last question. So let's say GTS is not embedded into S4 now. So is there a way that they can actually take GTS data to S4 and come to DataSphere, or directly they have to pull the data from ECC GTS to DataSphere?
That I don't know. I have to check Maybe I'll check and let you know tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. But these are the real questions they're asking yesterday. I thought I can share with the team. That could be a good advantage to everyone. Because now actually they're comparing, because people understand a Snowflake is cheaper than data SAP, so they are going to swap. But that is not the real thing. That's the wrong thing then.
That's the wrong thing. So
Yeah.
see, Snowflake can be cheaper, like if you have very less load. So Snowflake, that's why I'm saying Snowflake is cheaper or costly is Snowflake lets you govern how much storage you want and how much compute you want, right? So it's going to have very flexible thing with you to control that. But the problem is with control comes responsibility, right? So the
Mhm.
thing is, if you don't have a proper budget plan and if you don't have a projection of in 1 year, if someone asks you, your company, in 1 year, how much data are you going to generate and how much data are you going to transfer over the network, no company can give a proper estimate, right? So if that is the case, if the company asks Snowflake, can you give us a estimate of your services, how can they give a proper estimate? Because they don't know how much data you are going to use and how much compute you are going to use, because you are not telling them in a year how much is going to be projected. So if you have a very clear projection, then they can give you a very clear cost also. And then if you compare that cost with Datasphere, the thing is, if your customer is using very less very less data, very less network transfer and so on, then yes, Snowflake can be cheaper. But if you are using lot and if you are not setting some parameters correctly in Snowflake, Snowflake will turn out to be very costly.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. This answers.
No, so I have a
Santosh
question.
says-
I have a question.
Yeah.
So just as you said about Datasphere, that it is coming in two different modes, subscription and consumption based. So what about HANA Cloud? SAP HANA Cloud is also coming to two different ways or not?
HANA Cloud licensing, I am not that familiar with it. Maybe I'll check
Okay.
with Ankit and I'll get back to you on that. But so far, as far as I understand, HANA Cloud is entirely different, like compared to. It is also, I mean, ideally. So what they are going to do in the future, not now. In the future, what they are going to do is something similar to what the other cloud infrastructure providers are doing, like Amazon, Azure, or GCP. They have a consumption currency, right? So they say, okay, these are the like electricity billing. So irrespective of whether you run the fan or light or anything, there is a bill, there is a meter that calculates, okay, so this many units you have consumed and this is your bill. So same way, SAP is also trying to do in BTP, everything will be a service, like HANA Cloud will be a service, Datasphere will be a service, everything will be a service. And then the BTP will have some consumption units and you will be billed for the consumption unit, irrespective of which service you use. So in the long term, yeah, HANA Cloud, Datasphere is irrespective of what and how much you use. Based on that, there will be even they have AI core and generative AI hub, everything coming as a service in the BTP. So what will happen is, so BTP will have a generic meter kind of setup, like how electricity meter we have. So it will keep on calculating the consumption units. So some appliances, like maybe if you run AC, you will have more units consumed. If you run fan, you will have less units consumed. Same way, some services may consume a lot of units, some services may consume slightly lower units. But ideally, all the licensing and billing, everything will consolidate into consumption units. That's what I understand in the long term. So HANA Cloud will also do the same. But in the short term, what they are doing, I don't know.
No, why I'm saying, because we have purchased licensing from SAP, and both Datasphere and HANA Cloud are part of independent, software, not part of BTP. We can use BTP by using CPA, but we have independent licensing of HANA Cloud and Datasphere. So that's why I was clearing from you. So that's what that from where I'm coming.
Yeah, I understood. That's what currently, like what they are doing is all these separate products, they are trying to now going to that unified kind of billing mode. But
Yeah,
in the meantime, they are having so many different options for different customers. So based on some customer region, based on the customer size and everything, they are offering different options. So I'm also not expert in the HANA Cloud side, so I don't know the details of the billing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think almost 1 hour we burnt in Q&A. Okay, so any other questions?
I have the last question.
Okay.
Ram, the thing is, for one of my clients which are working right now, so they're in kind of a dilemma. They're having an existing landscape of BW 7.5 on HANA. Okay, so they want to transform that into SAP BTP, I mean, into the data sphere, followed by reporting on SSE. So, is there any prerequisite, to have this transformation to be done? They can they go directly from 7.5 to data
So,
sphere, or else should they
so this
convert?
question, you
Mhm.
hold on to this question because we have a session on this topic, which is
Mhm.
called future proofing your BW investments. So there is a SAP strategy itself there. So we have a session also planned for that. So I think 30 minutes to 45 minutes session. In
So,
that, this question will get answered in detail. So maybe you can hold on to this question till that.
definitely, I do. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So let's get started. Any other questions from anyone? Perfect. So let's get started for today.
Some
So today,
background
what?
noise is coming. Some background noise is coming. I think all of us are not on mute, so it is please, if it's possible.
Okay. So yeah, please everyone go on mute. Okay. So what I wanted to cover today is, so far we have seen so many things, right? So far in Data Builder, we have seen not many things. We have seen tables, views, and DR model. And then there are still one more thing left, which is the analytic model. We'll come to the flows later. We'll touch them and we'll cover each of them. But in the containers itself, we have tables, views, ER models, and then analytic model, right? So we have covered all these base containers so far, and then we have one thing called as analytic model in the data builder. Same way, there is something called as business builder, and in business builder we have different entities, not that many as data builder, but we have some things here. Like the important thing is dimension, fact, and then fact model. So what is a fact model? So that's going to have facts connected to dimensions. That's what they are showing like this. So this is the fact and these are the dimensions. So if you connect facts to dimensions, it will give you a fact model. And on top of fact model, you can create you know can create you can also create a consumption model, which is like a cube. And then on top of consumption models, you can create something called as perspectives, so which are like micro cubes, right? So these are different things you can create in business builder. And now we have so many different containers, right? So we have table, we have view, we have analytic model, and then in business builder we have several things. So how does the consumption layer look like? So if I want to consume them in reports, what are the things I can consume? So can I consume a table directly? Can I consume a view directly? Can I consume analytic model? And if so, how can I consume it? What type of connection does it allow me to consume? And so on. So we will see that early on because it will give you a good foundation of uh, how things will look like in the consumption layer. And previously, whenever we make some changes, for example, you want to do something related to reporting, like setting up a hierarchy, setting up multiple language translation, or setting up geo enrichment or something like that. Every time you have to go to a reporting tool to verify that the things are working as they are supposed to be. Like you cannot preview within data. So earlier version of Data Warehouse Cloud, here there used to be another layer which is called a story builder, like data builder, business builder, and then there was a story builder, which is kind of embedded version of SAC itself. At that time, it was very easy. You do something in data builder, business builder, and then you go to story builder, you will get an instant preview. Like you know how what you are doing is working or not. And then there was a transition time where they removed the story builder because I know SSE had to be a separate license, so the story builder was removed. And then you had only data builder and business builder. And for some time, the problem is if you create some things, there is no immediate way to preview. Like if you do hierarchy or if you do multi-language translation, you don't know whether it's working or not till you switch to Analytics Cloud and check there and come back here. So to avoid that, and for so many other advantages, they created something called as analytic model. So previously there was no option called analytic model. There was only tables and view. And in both tables and view, we already saw there is a thing called semantic type. right? So in the semantic type, we saw what are the different semantic types and so on. So one of the semantic type is called, if you remember, analytic data set, right? So do you guys remember? So one of the type is called analytic data set. So that was the previous go-to thing for analytics. So if you want to create a report, so you will target analytic data set. But yeah, the downside of analytic data set is the only data preview you do can be like, you right click, do a data preview, and then it shows the data as a simple table or whatever this data previewer had, whatever options it had. But now it is deprecated. It's not anymore recommended to create analytic data set. You have to go for analytic model. So as soon as you put analytic data set here, it will say create analytic model. So that is for, if you had existing analytic data sets, this button is there for easily migrating them to analytic model. So the analytic model comes with the data previewer, right? So very robust data previewer, so that each time you do not have to jump to another reporting system to verify whatever you are doing is right or wrong. So predominantly during our training, so whenever we make some small changes, whenever we are doing some text table to dimension and things like that, predominantly we'll be using analytic model and verifying in the data preview, right? So we will not jump to another reporting system. With that said, in a real environment, like in a real project, what you will do is, so yeah, in development also you will be doing data preview and analytic model, but ideally the end users will be seeing them in some reporting tool. So it can be SAC or it can be Power BI, Tableau, anything, right? So now we will understand, okay, so how are the different things that can be consumed. So if you look at this picture, it gives you some weird understanding, but we'll see another picture that will give you a clear understanding. So now you see that analytic model is kind of the go-to standard for exposing data. So this is the exposed data. So exposed data means it can be SAP Analytics Cloud, it can be Excel plugin, it can be a third-party tool, right? So just concentrate on the exposed data. So what are all exposed? Three things are exposed, right? So one is analytic models are exposed. Then views are exposed. And then perspectives are exposed. So from business builder side, if you think about it, you have to create a consumption model. On top of that consumption model, you have to create a perspective. And then that perspective can be exposed. And in the data builder side, you have to build an analytic model, and that can be exposed. Or you can have a view, and that view can be exposed. So these are the three arrows that are coming into the exposed data layer, right? So now if you go one step ahead, and yeah, I wanted to show you this, the different types of connections, and then what type of data can be consumed via that, right? So ideally speaking, the two things that you want to target for reporting are either, if you are targeting from data builder, it should be analytic models. If you are targeting from business builder, it should be perspectives. So these are the two main consumption objects that you should use for data exposure as per SAP recommendation. And also they are the only two things that will be supported through a DataSphere live connection in SAP Analytics Cloud. There is a third thing also, which is the analytic data set, which is now deprecated. So it is not recommended anymore. So I am not telling about it, and it's not in the picture also. So now the ideal things you should use in data builder, it should be analytic model, and in business builder, it should be perspective. Then you can create a live connection and you can consume in SAC. With that said,
when you are saying
I'll complete this, and then you can ask the question. There are a few more points.
Yeah, go ahead.
So with that said, we have views also for consumption, right? So how do you consume the views then? So if you come down, so you can see here, we have another type of connection. So this one I skipped because that is very similar. So here we are using live connection and then we are consuming it in Analytics Cloud. And here we are using live connection and we are consuming it in something called as Microsoft Excel plugin. So we will also see a brief introduction of how do we do the Microsoft add-in in a session. So it's very similar. So it is a SAP plugin for SAC, which will basically work very similar to how the SAC itself works. So we will see that. So there is no difference in the connectivity type. So I'm skipping that. So coming to consuming a view or analytics model or analytics data set, you can also consume them through OData. Right? So now what is the difference between the live connection and the OData connection? So in OData connection, you can actually acquire data and you can actually store it somewhere if required. And then you can also actually write the data back if required. So OData connection can connect to directly to views also. So that's why, like in the views, when you go to some view, right? So you have expose for consumption button, right? So you can expose for consumption and then you can consume them as OData. So see, I'm just keeping it as a relational data set. This is not an analytical data set or analytic model. It's just a view. So I'm exposing for consumption. So see, before I expose for consumption, this OData button will not enable. But when I expose for consumption, this OData button gets enabled. And then there is a OData URL which you can use in SAC to connect, right? So these are the two main ways in which you can connect to DataSphere to any tool. So live connection is only supported in SAC. So if you want to consume data live in real time, then yes, you have to go for SAC, and then SAC natively supports live connection. And in a live connection, you can only get data from analytic model or a perspective. You cannot directly get data from any other type of views. Whereas if you have to consume data from any other type of views, or you want to consume analytic model, but for some reason you don't want the data in real time, you want to import the data into SAC and then you want to build something, then you have to go for the OData method of connection. So in that you can consume both analytic model and views, and you can connect to either SAC or any third party tools also, right? So why am I saying this to you now? Because now we'll be building the higher level objects. So far whatever we have built, the tables, views, yeah, diagram is just a design thing. So we have so far built tables and views, right? So these are kind of low level database level objects. So now we are going to create more and more higher level objects, which are basically for reporting purposes. So when before we enter into that territory, we have to understand what are all the things that are consumable, right? And how are they consumable? So what are all the things they are consumable? If we go back, we saw that there are three things that are consumable, right? Analytic model is consumable, views are consumable, and perspective is consumable. And how are they consumed? So either analytic model and views can be consumed through OData. Perspectives and analytic model can be consumed through live. So if you think about it, analytic model are very flexible. So analytic model can either be consumed live or consumed via OData. Whereas perspective can only be consumed through live connection. And views can only be consumed through OData. So they are kind of, compared to analytic model, they are not that flexible. So that's why SAP recommends the robust thing that you can go for reporting when it comes to reporting based on DataSphere is building an analytic model, right? So any questions?
I think you answered whatever I was talking about acquire connection. But one thing, when you use SSC as a planning tool, previously it was always input connection, acquire connection. Is it right now supporting the live connection for planning also?
No,
SSC?
it is not supporting live connection for planning because planning does not work with live data in
Right.
any system, right? So instead of that, see, SAP said, yeah, planning does not work with live, but the customers will always say, DataSphere is also a SAP product. SSC is also a SAP product. Why can't they directly talk to each other? Why all this complexity, right? So for that, what SAP has done is, so they have created something called as seamless planning, or they made the planning a little bit easier. Okay, I'll show that documentation. Yeah, I'm searching. So what they have
And
done is the DataSphere spaces, right? The whatever
Mhm.
spaces we can see in DataSphere. So previously you have to have a connection either through a live connection or through OData, and then only you will consume the data. And for planning, you have to use a OData to connect import kind of
Right,
in
import connect.
SSE we have the input model, and that you have to connect, and then you have to store data in SSE and so on. So the main question is why to have the same data in DataSphere and SSE. So what they have done now is in SSE they have made DataSphere as the primary data storage. So what happens the with the SSE systems that are connected in the right way. So currently that feature is in beta only. So for the beta customers, what happens is if you go to the model creation, and when you click the model creation, it will show a pop-up, and then it will ask you whether you want to create the model within SSE or you want to create the model within some DataSphere space. So it will show all the DataSphere spaces, and then you can choose to expose the model in SSE as a fact in the DataSphere level. So that's something they are coming up with. That's a new feature that is coming up. Yeah, someone else had some question. Yeah, so this is the one I was talking about. So store SAP Analytics Cloud planning data in SAP Datasphere. It is in beta now, so only select beta customers will see the feature. And there is not a lot of setting that is required. From setting perspective, you just have to go to system setting, and then you have to link the tenants. Uh, that's all. I think even linking is not required in beta phase. SAP takes care of that for you. Uh, yeah, so what happens is as an administrator, you link the tenants, and then as a planning modeler, whenever they click create a model, a pop-up comes up, and it will show two options. It will say you want to store in SSE as a normal model, or you want to use any of the DataSphere spaces. And then when you say space, it's going to use DataSphere as the primary data storage. So it's not anymore redundant. You don't have a DataSphere model and then a SSE model storing the same data, wasting the space. Instead of that, it's just one copy now. So that's what SAP is trying to do in that space. Yeah, I heard someone from the women having some
yeah,
questions.
my question is like in SAP, the write back functionality, how does it work in DataSphere?
Yeah, through OData only. So you have to have a OData, and then in the model level, you have both import jobs and then export jobs. So in the export jobs, you will give the OData connection, and you will write the data from this model back to the data sphere. But like I'm saying, that is going to go away pretty soon. So you don't have to use the traditional way. So traditionally, what we used to do is we'll have an import job and based on a OData connection. What that will do is it will read data from data sphere, put it in SSE, and then we'll do the planning in SSE story. And then what we'll do after we publish the data, we'll go to the export job section of the same model. We'll create another connection OData to the data sphere from SSE. So now it will write the data back from this SSE model back to the data sphere. So that's why like it was a little bit complicated, and then the data was also redundant. So to avoid that only they are coming up with this.
Okay, when this seamless planning comes into picture, then the write back will happen automatically. When you publish, it goes back to DataSphere.
There is no write back itself because the data sphere is used as the storage itself. So there is no data
That means the
duplication.
publish directly happens to the DataSphere.
The model itself is created in the data sphere space.
Okay.
Yeah, so the publish also
Yeah.
happens directly in the model, so it directly happens in the space.
Oh,
Okay, so now let's come back and then let's try creating some views and then some analytic model. And I want to show you how to connect directly to SAC using the first I'll show you the live connection and then I'll show you the OData connection. Okay. So now we have some data in the business partners. So let me just check if there are any measures there which we can use. If not, we'll create some other table and some other view. I think business partner is not an ideal example. I should have something like sales orders or something. So let's see. Yeah, there is nothing we can use as measure. I mean, I can use the phone number as measure. There are no characters. Yeah, I think phone number is only integer. Okay, so for the time being, I'll show you a very bad example of data, but very good example of the process. Then later I'll give you some assignment or we'll do together some other good table and view. So for now, we have a table called business partners, right? So it is just a table, and the type also we are just given the relational data set. So the system is not making any distinction between, whether it is a measure or dimension, right? So everything is columns to the system, right? So now I want you all to go through an exercise, right, where you will tell me what is a dimension and what is a measure, because most of you are experienced, so we can quickly go through this, but for
So
some of them,
dimension is basically a text field, okay, and measure is basically a numerical value.
yes,
Not
that
necessary.
is yes, that is, both are fair points. The first point is kind of a good thumb rule, but yes, not always true. But yeah, so okay, so we'll go file by file.
mean,
I
you
have
have
some.
the
Of course, if you
example,
take
right?
sales order number, it's a numeric, alphanumeric, but it can be, it will be a dimension. So definitely the mostly like counts or quantities, amounts, this all comes under measures, and normal other things we can consider as dimensions.
Yes, that's true.
Most of the master data is considered as a dimension, and the fact table is considered as a the other one.
Measure. Yes, that's
Yes.
also true. So in my definition or in my view of what is a measure, so in the name itself it says measure, right? So what is analytics? We are trying to analyze a business process, and then we are trying to say whether the business is going good or bad. So any business process, if we are trying to measure a business process of sales, how do you measure sales? How do I say whether my company is doing good sales or bad sales? So you need to have some things that can be measurable. I can measure the quantity of products I'm selling. So every product, how much it is selling, like how many quantity, whether I'm selling just one product or I'm just selling two product, three product, five product. So quantity can be measured because it is measurable and comparable, right? And then I can measure the amount. So each product will have a unit price, and then I can give some discounts also, and then I will have a gross margin, and then I'll have taxes and so on. So all this, when it comes to sales, are measurable. So most of the measurable things are numeric as well, right? So you cannot measure something and then say, yeah, in a movie you can say, yeah, it's excellent movie, it's good movie, something like that. In movie, maybe that can be a measure. If many people say that movie is a good movie, that can be a measure. It's a text only, or it's a rating scale, that can be a measure. But ideally in business processes, most measures are numeric only. So yes, the definition, when you say that the numerics are measured, it is true, but it is kind of double-edged, because there can be some fields that are entirely numeric, but they can be dimensions also. For example, IDs and geographic locate, like the latitude, phone number, fax number. All these can be postal code. All these can be purely numeric or sometimes alphanumeric, but they can also be dimensions. So the definition of measure can be whatever we use to quantify a business process or measure a business process, so that we can compare different things. So I can compare two products and say which product is selling more, or which product is profitable, or I can compare 2 years and then say, are we doing better than last year? Or I can compare 2 months and say, are we doing better than last month? Or I can compare two regions and say, okay, so which region is doing better, right? So those measurable things are measures, and then whatever allows us to do all these type of comparisons, this ranking, filtering, whatever lets us cut through a measure, just saying that 2,500 is the revenue doesn't make any lot of sense. But if I say, on this month in this region, for this product or from this customer, I made this, that adds a lot of information about that measure. So all that other extra information, which adds value to the measure, they can be defined as dimensions, right? So dimensions can both be textual and numeric, but even though the dimensions are numeric, they are not additive like measures, right? So I cannot go ahead and add all the customer IDs and say, the total of customer ID is this much. I can do that, but that doesn't make any sense. I cannot say, this postal code is greater than this postal code. I mean, mathematically that's true, but that does not make a lot of business sense. Why am I comparing two postal codes, right? So dimensions are there for filter. I can filter a postal code and then say that in this area the sales is like this, in this area the sales is like this, or I can rank. I can apply a rank. I can apply drill down, drill across, all that things. So even though the dimensions can have numeric data, that numbers may not always be additive, or even if you add it, it will not give you any good, any good or meaningful results. So with that definition in mind, so in this data set, which is for CRM, so can you guys tell me which are all the dimensions and which are all the measures?
Except revenue and purchase, everything else is a dimension.
Even total purchases?
Revenue and total purchases.
Total purchases measure.
Yeah, those
Okay.
two. Total purchase and revenue will be measured, and remaining are dimensions.
Okay. So everyone agrees? Any differing opinion? Okay. If everyone agrees, then let's move on to finance. Okay. So in this, tell me what are all the dimensions and what are all the measures?
Only first two columns are dimension.
First
No,
three
first
columns
three,
are
I would say, yeah.
First,
Yeah.
first
Yeah,
three
first three.
columns.
Okay. In this, any differing opinion? Okay. Again, there are no differing opinions. I'm going to next, but I'm not saying them whether it is right or wrong. I'll come back to that. Okay. So I'm trying to see in which one you differ, right? So in this, what are all dimensions and measures? Yeah, it gets trickier.
Salary is a measure. Tenure is a measure. Turnover rate is a measure. Engagement score is a measure. Rest everything else is a dimension.
Engagement score is a measure. What about performance rating?
I don't think so. You can't add them
So
together, right?
any differing opinion in this?
As it is HR, salary is going to be the only measure here.
Okay,
my view.
one differing opinion. Okay, that's good. So salary is the only measure. All the other things are dimensions. So any other opinions?
Yes, I agree. Only salary is only the, measure.
Okay, so there are two schools of thought here, right? So there is one. There are two or more people saying that only salary is a measure, other everything is a dimension, and then there is one group of us saying that no, all these are measures. There can be another group that can say even performance rating.
Yeah,
can
I
be a
think that
measure.
one is also a measure. I just gave it a second thought. That I think that's also a measure. So HIJKL. Yes, yeah.
Right. So now I'll give you another definition of measures. Right. So in measure, there are two things. Right. So there is something called as cumulative measures, and then there are something called as non-cumulative measures, and then there are something which are partially cumulative, or at some situations, some scenarios, they can be added up. Right? So with this definition in mind, we have to think about what type of reporting we are going to do, right? So for example, even age is numeric, right? And if I have a business requirement, where the business is asking me, I want average age of the entire company, or I want average age per department, then in that particular business question, in that particular scenario, age can also be a measure, right? So in general, if I add the entire age, I can find the total age of the company, but that doesn't give me any valuable result. But if the question is like, okay, I want to see the average age of my company so that I understand what are the type of people. If, for example, Swiggy or some startup, right? Their average age will be in 30s or 20s. Whereas a big enterprise, the average age can be 45 or 45 plus, right? Even in a country, they calculate average age, right? Average life expectancy, average so many things, right? So these type of measures, they will not make sense if you simply add them together. But if you give some perspective and add it, for example, department wise, if I want to calculate average, or as a total, I want to calculate an average, or if I want to find who is the youngest person in the company, or who is the oldest person in the company, if I want to do min, max, that kind of thing, yes, then this can be a measure. So these types of measures in SAP terms, they are called, I mean, they are done via something called as exception aggregation, right? So in general, all measures, they do a sum, right? Salary, if we take in any drill down or in any type of aggregation, it will end up doing sum by default, and it will not care about the context. In any context, it will just do sum. So that type of measures are called, just aggregated measures or simple aggregations. Whereas this type of measure, where you need to define the operation, like sometimes I want to only count, sometimes I want to do average, sometimes I want to do min, sometimes I want to do max, sometimes I want to do the last, all these things. And then they also require a context, some context dimension. Like sometimes I want to do, based on a department, sometimes I want to do based on maybe month, like that. So if it requires a operation different than a normal addition, and if it requires a context, then they are still measures, but they are doing something called as an exception aggregation, right? So with that context,
is that same as a inventory, like?
yes, but yeah, we are going to see that inventory is the very next example.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's park it.
So with that in mind, if you think about it, it really boils down to you asking the right question to the business. So you have to understand what type of reporting they are looking at. For example, right after a performance rating, if they want to see, if all the departments are fitting within a bell curve, that is the type of chart they want to do. Then performance rating can very well be a measure. But can they be simply added? No. You have to have some exception context, like you have to do department wise or you have to do person wise, and then you have to use performance rating as a measure in those scenarios only. So if I want to see within a department, yes, I want to see the average rating, or within a department, I want to find out the count of people falling under each of this rating. So I want to see how many people got 4 rating, how many people got 3 rating, how many people got 2 rating, and then I want to plot a curve so that I can understand, okay, does it fit in a bell curve? So are we giving more average performance compared to low and high performance ratings, like that, right? So you have to understand from the business, okay, what type of analysis they want, and based on that, you have to go back and work on your measures and dimensions. And some measures, like you rightly identified, salary and so on, they are very simple measures, irrespective of the context. If you add them, they'll give some meaningful numbers. But sometimes there are measures, even tenure or turnover rate or engagement score, that and all, you need to understand what type of, analysis we are going to do. Based on that, we can determine whether they can be a measure or, things like that. Now coming to inventory, again, inventory, bank balance, all these things, they have a special element to it, right? So here again, the question is, what are all the measures and what are all the dimensions?
Last 3 columns are measures. I mean, it could be cumulative, non-cumulative, definitely. So inventory level could be a direct measure, cumulative measure. Remaining two will be non-cumulative measures, like as you mentioned just now.
Okay. So
Maybe
any
what is the
differing
minimum lead
opinions?
time, what is the maximum lead time, or what is the average lead time? So that kind of calculation we can do it on lead time definitely. And the pattern also same, like what kind of pattern maximum we have it in our company, something like that. They might, if they ask, then yeah.
Yes. So here inventory is kind of a snapshot in data. So what is important in inventory? Yes, here also everything is non-cumulative. Everything is exception aggregation, like partially cumulative kind of measures. But here the important dimension is the time dimension, right? So
Yeah.
the context in which they will act like a proper measure is based out of time. So I'll give you a very, so inventory, maybe some of you might have worked, some of you might not. So I'll give you a very practical example that we can relate to. So let's take our bank accounts, for example, right? So our bank accounts, either the saving account or current account, will give us some interest, somewhere between 4 to 6%, right? So how are they giving this interest? Are they giving me, interest based on, so for example, every month, first of that month, they have to credit the interest. Will they look at my balance on 30th of the month and then give me the interest of 4 to 6%? No, right? Because then what I could do is I can fool the system. Every 30th, I can dump a very huge amount into my account. Say, for example, I can dump some $10,000 on the 31st or 30th. And then the bank will see the last account balance and then it will give me 4 to 6%. That way I can cheat the bank and then I can get a good, you know, interest. But what the bank actually does is, every day it calculates something called as a closing balance. So on first, maybe I had only 2000, and then on second I took some amount, so it was only 1000, and on third someone deposited some amount, I had 3000, and so on, right? So every day or even every transaction, it will keep taking a snapshot, right? And then it will have a timestamp or a date, which is this one. So this is actually a date. So 1 Jan or something like that, 2 Jan, something like that. It will be even more like in a banking system, it will be having a timestamp with hour, minute, and even seconds, milliseconds, etc. But yeah, it will have some dates. What this enables us to do is, so if I ask what is my account balance, you have to do a certain operation. So if I say what is my account balance, you have to use the operation last, right? So you will see the last date and then retrieve that amount as my account balance. Whereas if I want to calculate interest, I will not use the last, right? And I cannot sum also. So in no situation I can sum. The bank cannot say, you have 6,000 as your account balance in any point in time. So sum is here, it is not directly summable. In some situations, when I'm asking what is my current balance, it has to use an operation called last. So it will go to the last transaction and it will see the timestamp, and then whichever is the last, it will take that amount and then that will be my current balance. Whereas if it wants to calculate interest and so on, it will do average closing balance. So every day, if I have multiple transactions, say for example in Jan 1st itself, I did 2-3 transactions. What it will do is it will calculate an average for that date, right? So average closing balance for that date. So like that, for every day, it will create an average closing balance, and then for the entire month, it will calculate an average balance, and based on that average balance, it will give me 4 to 6% interest, right? So if you see, the inventory snapshot is also somewhat similar, right? For certain operations, you will calculate the last. For example, if someone asks you how many shirts are you are working for a Reliance Trends or some clothing brand or apparel brand, and then they ask you, okay, so how many shirts are on the shop floor currently, right? So you will use a last operation, and then you will find out, okay, so what is the last known inventory is in the floor. But if someone asks you a question like, okay, so in this month, what was the average, what was the total number of sales of a shirt, then you will add the transactions, not the inventory snapshots. But if someone asks you what was the average inventory level, so every day when we are closing the shop, how many shirts were left out, right? So based on that, you will calculate the average for the entire month, so that you will know what is the demand pattern, and then you will also know how much you should keep in a stock. Because for the business, overstocking is costly, understocking is also not acceptable, right? So you have to find always optimum inventory level, and for that, these type of measures, they are kind of tricky, because in some context you have to apply last operation to find out the latest balance or latest inventory, and in some cases you have to apply average over a period of time. But one thing that is common in this type of snapshots data is the measure is always tied to a date or timestamp. Without that date or timestamp, the measure is waste. It's just, you can throw it away. It doesn't have any meaning if it loses that that snapshot in time. So yeah, anyone would like to add any more here, like, because you might have worked in inventory more than me. So yeah, if you want to pitch in, or if you have any questions. Okay, so we'll go to one more, sales targets. Yeah, this is kind of simple. I think I should have opened it earlier. And then we have one more, which is sales. I think that is also simple. Yeah, basically we covered all the complex ones. So I think now you have a fair understanding of what is a dimension and what is a measure, right? So yes, measures are numbers, and yes, dimension can also have numbers, but dimension numbers, if added together, will not give any sense in any context. So if I have customer ID, I cannot do any meaningful numerical operation at all. But coming to measures, some measures are simple measures. In any context, you can add them and they will be meaningful. But some of the measures can be non-cumulative in some context and cumulative in some context. And some of the measures are very specialized. They will only work if you have a date or timestamp associated, or else it's just throwable. It's useless. Right? So yeah, with that in mind, you can approach the multidimensional modeling. One of the good book that talks about all this and a little more is a book for multi
Symbol book, I think.
yes, by Ralph Kimball. Right, so there is a book. There are two founding fathers of data warehousing. So one is Bill Inman and the other is Ralph Kimball, and they too had differing views of how a data warehouse should be, or how a business intelligence system should be. One guy said it should be top down, right? So you should start from the reporting level. You should understand what is the requirement for reporting, and then you should build all the bottom things, right? So top down. And the other guy said, no, you have to start from the database schema level design. You have to understand, okay, so what are the things that needs to be in place, and then based on that, you have to build everything up till the reporting level. So that's bottom up, right? So two differing views. And for multidimensional modeling, Ralph Kimball nailed it. So many good things he has correctly done. So if you don't have time to go through all the chapters, I would at least say go till chapter 3, or at least till chapter 2. So you will understand all the foundational concepts, and then you will understand the different types of facts, right? So cumulative, non-cumulative, aggregation, factless fact, all these things, right? And then that will help you not only in SAP in long term, your data warehousing or analytics journey. It will help you. So yeah, I'll pin the link in chat. I'll also put it in today's notes. Yeah, this is the guy, Ralph Kimball, and he has written a series of books. I think 3 books or 4 book series, and all the books are good. If you have time, yeah, you can go through all these books. But the exceptional book is this multidimensional modeling. Yeah, I think they have kept it free now because it is in publication for a long time, and the copyright is only there for so many years. So it's in the free domain now. So you can just get it from their site itself. Yeah, thank you, Usha. I see that you have put WhatsApp link. So yeah, everyone can, whoever wants to join can join, and you can help each other out. Okay, so any questions on multidimensional modeling? Do you understand what is measure? What is dimension. Okay. So if you have that understanding, let me go ahead and then let's create a model now. So why do we look at what are measures and dimensions is because so far we were dealing with low level database objects like the table and view. In there, it doesn't matter. Like everything is just a column for the database. The data type is only thing that is required. But now we are going to design higher level objects, right? So we are going to create an analytic model, which is used for analysis. So here the system wants to, classify them into dimensions and measures, and that is because uh, you system use some specialized schemas which are very good for reporting, right? So in the tables and views and everything, the system is storing them as transparent tables in the database. Transparent tables means one-to-one mapping. So one table in the application has one table in the database, or it can have a highly normalized database level schema. For example, you have a screen in SAP where you can create sales orders, right? So you will think that, okay, I am entering one sales order information. Maybe in the background, there is only one table. So that may not be the case. In background, there can be 10 tables, there can be 15 tables, each associated with each other, right? So that is called a highly normalized form, right? The database normalization you might have learned. So the databases are storing data in a way that it avoids a lot of anomalies for OLTP kind of operations. But now when you come to this OLAP kind of operations where you want to do reads more and you will not do any writes, then you have to put the data in such a way that it's very good for read operations, right? So one of the popular ways to put it is the star schema, which is where we have a centralized fact table, which is very huge, millions of transactions. It captures all the measures actually, right? And it will have all the dimension IDs. So this is a central table. So if it has to connect to a dimension table, it has to know the primary key of the dimension table, right? So in this fact table, you will have two things. You will have a set of measures, and then you will have a set of dimension IDs. So if this fact table is connected to 5 dimensions, then there will be 5 dimension IDs, and then how many ever measures are there, that will be the fact table content. Okay? And each dimension table, it will have its own attributes, text, and hierarchy tables. If you are extending the star schema, or if you are going for the traditional star schema, then you will have within the dimension table itself, you will have multiple columns and so on. Right. So with that understanding, now let's go ahead and let's start building an analytic model. So I have deployed, okay, so let's see, data type is changed from integer to N64. Okay, so I have a table now. Let's check the data in the table. Okay, so the data is fine, and I have some random columns like this: web address 1, 2, and so on, which maybe in a view we will avoid these columns and we will take only certain columns like the partner ID and email address and the phone number. Maybe only 3 columns or 4 columns we'll take in a view. So I'm going to create a view on this. So the simplest view to create is a graphical view, right? So if you are very good at SQL, even SQL view is simpler. So now I have the business partner table, which I can drag from here. And now if I want only 3 columns, can you tell me what I should do?
Projection.
Yes. So I can go here. I can do a projection mode, and in that I can exclude all the unwanted columns, right? So yes, I mean in SQL this would have been much easier. I can just say select, and then I could have just said whatever I wanted. But here, let me do a select all, and then let me do exclude, because I want only 3 columns. So I'll just exclude everything. And then I'll include whatever I want. email address, and phone number. Okay, maybe just that 4 columns I want. And then I can see that in the view that 4 columns are coming, and then I can give some name. So I'm going to call business partner view, and let it be relational data set, because I am not previously, if it was olden days, what I would have done is here itself I would have put analytic data set, and then it will ask me straight away, what are the measures and what are the dimensions. I would have moved the phone number to the measure and then saved it, right? But it is not recommended anymore to create analytic data set. So if you have a scenario like this where you want to consume the view itself, then you have to create the fact, right? So fact is similar to analytic data set. So you have to distinguish between measures and attributes, and then you can activate it, and even you can consume it like we saw through data connections. That's one way, right? So which we can do, or we can directly leave it as relational data set itself, and we don't have to distinguish between the measures and dimensions here, and we can directly create the analytic model also. Or we can create the fact first, and we can create analytic model directly from the fact. So I can add phone number to my measure, and all the 3 will be my dimensions, and the type is fact. And I don't want to expose this for consumption because I'm not going to use OData now. So I am just going to keep it as a view. I give the view name as VP view. So here I should not use underscores and all. So I'll just say VP view, and let's deploy this. Already exists, so let's create business view. So it's getting deployed. So once it is deployed, column partner ID is not deployed, model not on DB. Okay. So here this is deployed. Even without key, it should work. Even in the table, I don't have any keys. I'm not sure what's going on. Business partners to table, business partners to inconsistent column partner ID in deployed model, but not on DB. Okay, I know what happened. So let's fix it. So in the business partner table, so if you remember, when I click deploy, it said that the partner ID field was changed from integer to integer 64. Even though it got deployed, somehow in the database, the changes are not there. So when it's trying to create a view, it is basically inconsistent. So to fix this, usually a redeploy will work. But if I just say deploy, here table to column partner ID is not deployed. So it's just not working. So if I say simple deploy, so what I'll do is I'll make a change, right? And then I'll try to do a deploy. So that is a validation error actually. You have to check what is it. Okay, just that. There are dependencies. So ideally, to handle this, what I would do is now, I mean, there are 2 ways to do this. So one is I can go ahead and I can delete the data and I can make all the structural changes. If it is production, yes, we will duplicate the table and then we'll do all that. But as we are just doing a quick example, I'm not going to do that. So I can just go to my space and I can re-import and create a new table. That's one way. Or I can go to a different space. And here we have a sales order table, which is far better for creating a model. So let's see if it has data. Okay, it doesn't have any data, so it's basically useless for us. So let's create a new table. Again, there are connections. So if we want, we can use the connections and then we can get data from there as also. So let's do that instead. Okay, all the connections are in the other space. So connections are space level objects, right? So if you create a connection in one space, so that is available in that space only. So for example, in this space, I have, I think 2-3 connections. So I have a BW connection, I have a Northwind OData connection, I have a S4 connection. So let's try BW connection. Unable to connect. Not reachable. Okay, I have to check with Ankit why that system is down. But yeah, I mean, in the past, I checked, right? For example, some of the views, I think this process chain view itself was created from BW. Let's see if there is data there. It's a remote table, not persisted. So